COVID-19 isn't helping. Businesses are battling and jobs are at risk. While homeowners are feeling the weight of those monthly bills, some countries are looking at options like payment holidays to ease the burden. Now, is this even a possibility here in South Africa? Let's chat about it with John Jack. He's CEO of Galetti Corporate Real Estate. John, good evening and thank you so much for your time. So for those of us who have never heard of this, what exactly is a payment holiday and who would it apply to?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, typically what we're looking at the moment is a situation where, banks are, the pecking order is usually the banks, the landlord, and then the tenant. And now the situation's the other way around. It's the tenant, the landlord, then the bank. Really, if you start seeing defaults from tenants, you're going to start having a problem. And ultimately, that landlord needs to support the tenant to stay in business. The tenant needs to carry on paying rental, and the landlord can then pay the banks. Now, where you get a sort of payment holiday is where the bank says, listen, we'll go interest only on your loan repayments, and we'll give you a break for sort of three months to 6 months. And that's sort of just a mechanism of everyone helping everyone else down the line. Yeah.
So if I understood you correctly, then you just pay what you would have paid the interest value and the actual amount of your actual, let's call it your bond repayment, that would be put on hold or frozen for a few months.
Yes, so you can go to interest only, or you can have it. You can have more of a structure where you could almost capitalize some of those payments down the line. So it would increase your loan amount, but you put it sort of further down the line. So it's a cash flow exercise, really. It doesn't mean that you get out of paying. It just means that you're helped in the short term to cash flow your debt.
So, John, what would be the knock-on effect of this? I mean, obviously, like you say, it would help tenants as well, and that's sort of like, it's kind of like pay it forward. But would that mean that the tenants would continue to pay their rent every month, or that too would be put on hold?
What we'd like to see is some form of rental abatement. I mean, largely across the board, tenants are already starting to approach landlords saying, specifically in the retail sector, saying, look, we are struggling. We are going to need to pay 50% rental, or maybe can you give us a month or 2 months rent free? And this would get put on the end of the lease. So maybe your lease is extended by that amount of time, 2-3 months. Or alternatively, your rental, when you start paying again in 2-3 months' time, is no longer 100,000 Rand a month, it's 120,000 Rand a month, and you start to pay off that debt. Again, it's capitalized, so it's just one party helping the other party to stay in business, because in the end of the day, if the landlord sees a complete default by the tenant and the tenant can no longer pay because the business is not in operation, that's the worst case scenario. And we just can't have that happen, because you'll see that, to be wildfire.
Well, I'd also like your take on the interest rate cut that we saw yesterday, John. I mean, how far do you think that would go to ease the situation at the moment?
Yeah, we were actually calling for 100 basis points, and we saw it, which is brilliant. Up until now, we've sort of 25 points, which doesn't make much of a difference. This actually makes a significant difference. And then this is your households across the country. This is your car repayment. This is your bond repayment. And then also, if you go to the larger landlords, you're dealing in bigger credit notes, it makes a significant difference. There's no question that the funds are under pressure. You've seen the biggest funds in the country, coming off 20-30% in the last couple of days alone. It's just sort of pandemonium. And obviously in that situation where the fund valuation is coming down, you still have your same debt level, and your loan-to-value ratios push out, and the funds get under more and more pressure to service that debt. So dropping the interest rate it was a no-brainer, and I think a huge positive for the industry.
John, do you think, just going back to the idea of the payment holiday, what would be a good enough period for this holiday to last?
That's anyone's guess. There's so much speculation in the media. There's so much speculation from everyone. I don't think anyone knows. 3 months, I don't think people need it yet. I don't think that cash flow has impacted them directly. Of course, unless you're a retailer, a restaurant, et cetera, it's impacting you now. But in terms of other business, the knock-on effect, perhaps let's take, for example, the bigger liquor companies. Now restaurants have been shut down after 6, bars have been shut down after 6. That's going to impact them, but not immediately, over time. So a 3-month period, a 3 to 6 month period, but at the same time, the tenants can't expect to pay nothing. They must also come to the party, and landlords are going to have to come to the party and continue to service their debt. There can't be an outright default, and I don't think there will be. I think everyone's in the same boat here. So, Yeah.
Well, I know that we're not having a savings conversation here, but do you think that South Africans are disciplined enough to put aside that money so that when the holiday is over, they will be able to honour their commitments?
I don't think it's a case of putting aside money. I really think it's just a cash flow shock to the system. Suddenly people aren't spending. You go to Sandton City, and besides for getting your hand sprayed every 50 meters, 100 meters by the security, there's no one in the shopping center. That's direct impact to retail. Restaurants, a direct impact. And so it goes on and on and on, and those shocks go through the system. But I don't think there's going to be money to put aside. This is literally money to match your overheads. Your revenue's coming down, and you still, you need to bring your overheads down. And this is just a mechanism of doing it. I don't think it's anything else.
All right, thanks very much for that, explaining the payment holiday to us, John Jack from Galetti Corporate Real Estate.